Xuanji, visiting the South Tower of Chongzhen Abbey and inspecting the signatures of those who passed the imperial examination. My eyes are full of clouds and mountains when the spring sky clears up. How sharp the silver hook signatures produced from their fingers. I hate the gauze gown which covers my verses. Lifting my head, but in vain, I envy the names on the list. So we continue with some more poems by Xuanji. The one we bring today is a particularly interesting piece. First, let's give some information about the background of this poem. So Chongzhen Abbey is one of the big Taoist abbeys that existed in Chang'an. It was located quite to the east of the city, close to one of the gates in the eastern wall of Chang'an. And one of its characteristics was that it had a southern tower, and it was a custom for the Confucian scholar official candidates who had passed the imperial examinations to hang their names probably from placards on the southern tower, which, they probably wrote themselves. Remember, in Chang'an, scholar officials were, part of the highest elite, and the goal of every young, cultured Confucian was to pass the examinations and become a scholar official. And writing poetry served as a means to an end, because the Jinshi exam at the time of the Tang dynasty heavily leaned towards literary skill. And we could go on a tangent here and speculate on how the high quality of Tang poetry is probably connected to the fact that the most outstanding and talented members of Tang society really needed to be good poets to have a chance at becoming members of the elite, at least those who weren't from an aristocratic background and who could have climbed the lesser rungs of the imperial bureaucratic ladder through their ancestry. Anyway, so in the background to this poem, Xuanji, who is a woman, a cultured woman who can compose poetry, but who, being a woman, can never hope to become a scholar official, is visiting the Abbey, Chongzhen Abbey. She's probably climbing the tower, or at the foot of the tower perhaps, and she's checking the names of the new graduates, who will go on, many of them, to become scholar officials and have a long career in office. So that's the background of the poem. We could read beyond a merely descriptive element from the contents of the poem. There is an implicit sort of like complaint or grievance. It seems to be pretty clear that Xuanji's poetic persona is complaining here at the fact that as a woman she cannot have her name inscribed in those lists. And we'll talk about that when we move to the third line in this poem, which uses a gauze gown as an image, as a metaphor for her being a woman and for the unfairness of not being able to access a political career because of her gender. So her gender, or rather an unequal gender system, is confining her talents. Okay, let's go to the poem. The poem is pretty short. It's a heptasyllabic quatrain, so this means 4 lines, each pretty long, 7 characters each. And remember, we didn't mention it, remember Xuanji, we mentioned this in the previous poem and in her biography. She was, during the later years of her life, a Taoist priestess. She lived in an abbey, and she cultivated artistic endeavors and also, personal endeavors. Taoist priestesses were not technically barred from having amorous liaisons with people. So let's take a look at the poem, line by line, and couplet by couplet. First couplet. Although, given the size of these lines, perhaps it's even better to go line by line. So, first line. My eyes are full of clouds and mountains when the spring sky clears up. So the first line, as usual, gives us, well, the title already gives us a location. So we know in space where we are. We are close to the south tower of Chongzhen Abbey, or getting there. The first line gives us the time, the season, if you will. So the eyes of the poetic persona are full of clouds and mountains when the spring sky clears up. So this is spring. Maybe there's been a light rain or a light shower. And she looks up, she can see clouds and mountains. The clouds, obviously, because it's been raining. The mountains, we are in the east of Chang'an, looking south. Remember, this is the South Tower. You would have probably been able to see in the distance the Chongzhen Mountains, which were to the south of the imperial capital. Second line, how sharp the silver hook signatures produced from their fingers. So she is looking up. Remember, the first couplet puts the focus on the eyes viewing, so on visual perception. It's not just the landscape, the clouds above, the mountains in the distance that are being seen, but in the poetic personas elevating her gaze up to the tower, besides the atmospheric phenomena and the natural background, she's going to see the tower, and within the tower, the placards or the inscriptions in which the Jinshi passers have written their names. And this is what is described in the second line. The silver hook signatures, which are sharp, reflect, the official elegant calligraphy of these scholar official candidates who have produced the writing of their names to emblazon themselves in this tower. So the poetic persona has seen the clouds, the mountains, and now zooming in into the tower, the names in elegant calligraphy of those who have passed the imperial examinations this year. We move to the third line. The first couplet focused on a descriptive and visual element. The second couplet is going to move further inwards into the subjective feelings and impressions that these views have caused on the poetic persona. This is line 3, I hate the gauze gown which covers my verses. So the immediate emotional reaction of the poetic persona is hate. What does she hate? The gauze gown which covers my verses. And this gauze gown, is working as a metaphor for her female gender. So she really hates being a woman, and even though she is a prominent and a qualified and a talented poet in her own right, she's wearing this gauze gown of femininity that does not allow her to compete with these scholar officials. And the implicit line is that she would want to compete with them, and she feels perhaps rather confident that she could have, she could stand a good chance of beating them in their own game. This comes more clearly in the last line. So she hates the gauze gown, and now lifting my head, but in vain, I envy the names on the list. So she lifts her head, perhaps to read further inscriptions, or rather, there is, in this gesture of elevating the head, there is an elevating of the spirit through her ambition of thinking, I could do as well or better than these guys. But in vain. And she envies the names on the list. She cannot aspire to become a scholar official, even if she can aspire to write superb poetry and participate in poetry exchanges with scholar official poets, and, feeling in no way inferior to the poets she exchanges poems with. So overall, this is a pretty interesting poem because of the way it asserts both gender inequalities in the past, but also the self-righteous and not altogether open to dispute quality of a female poet, probably the most talented female poet of the Tang, who knows that her skills and ability do not get and will not get to open her the possibilities that she undoubtedly would have deserved in a different situation. So, really nice poem.